This is the Foreign Lady Podcast. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Foreign Lady Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth.
And the bottom line.
And we are back with another episode for you this week. So on today's episode, we are going to be talking about Bill Belichick and his... Okay, can I just say, what's up with these men and their age gaps with this girl, with their... Like, I don't understand what's going on, but okay. I digress.
I don't think y'all are ready for this, man.
I didn't even get the intro out yet, and I'm already pissed. Okay, so we're going to talk about Bill Belichick, and I'm sure everybody knows who he is, but for those of you who don't know, he was the former head coach for the New England Patriots, and now he's actually the new head coach for the UNC. College. He's now doing college football, and his 24-year-old girlfriend, and the interview where it just kind of went off the rails because she didn't want him answering any questions about their relationship, and people are trying to figure out what the nature of their relationship is. It's all really weird. And then we're going to do a more deep dive into the movie Sinners, just to kind of talk, because a lot of people have been talking about like the metaphor and what it really means, and what the kind of like deep dive into the movie. So we're going to discuss that. And then we're going to discuss a viral video that's going on that is on the internet right now about a woman in the park who used a racial slur against a 5-year-old with autism. So we're going to talk about that, and just how people are... I think I want to focus more on like how people treat folks with disabilities and autism, especially, and with, some of the stuff that's been going on with our supposed new head of Health and Human Services and his things on, folks with autism and just things like that. So we'll get more into it. But yeah. And I just want to say, I want to wish all the mothers happy Mother's Day out there. I believe this weekend is Mother's Day. I totally forgot.
My goodness.
Somebody was like, what are you doing for Mother's Day? I'm like, when's Mother's Day? They're like, this weekend? I'm like, oh yeah, it is.
I thought we had at least another week.
I know, right? But no, it's coming up on Sunday. So happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there. You guys, we're troopers. We're troopers, man. So
yeah.
Wish you all a good day. Hope it's nice and quiet. And that's how mine's gonna be. Nice and quiet, away from the kid.
Good for you.
So don't tell him I said that. He doesn't listen to the show, so he won't know. All right. So, how's your weekend going? How's your week? How's everything?
Honestly, it's just been pretty good.
Okay.
Just one, I think.
Okay. All right. That's a slow day for you. Slow week.
You're one to talk.
I am over here by myself, living my best life on my own terms. Okay.
That's another way of saying you do it as you please.
No, I'm not over here thoughting like you, but No.
Let's not throw out words. Let's not get people thinking the wrong thing.
Sure.
Right? I don't. If I happen to share the podcast with somebody I'm interested in, I can't have them being misconstrued and get the wrong thing. I'm making all the right decisions.
All right, we'll move on before we get you in trouble with however many people you're dealing with out there.
Don't compare me to your lifestyle.
Look, I'm over here living PG-13, okay?
And you know what these 13-year-olds are doing now? That's the funny thing. It's getting worse out here.
You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. They're not... Well, I know what I was doing at 13, so I can only imagine.
I was in church 4 or 5 times a week.
Sure.
I literally was.
Yeah, what were you doing in church? I know what I was doing in church.
I don't even want to go down that lane. My head was in the Bible. Sure. If you was doing something in the church, the world is really broken.
I was serving the Lord, okay?
You were doing something other than serving the Lord in church. The world is really broken. Serving the Lord. I would hope anybody who goes to church knows better than to do anything in the church. Like, we really leave that outside if you're going to do it.
Hey, I mean, has the most controversial things happening, and you got Sister Agnes trying to mess with the pastor, and who knows? So I
That's
don't
so
know.
terrible. Sad but true. Sad but true. But like I'm glad that I was really raised that you got to live differently if you're a
Yeah,
believer. You really got to live differently. Like you can't be bringing certain things into the sanctuary.
yeah, yeah. But it takes a special kind of like mindset to do that, right? Like I go to church for my own salvation. That's how it's supposed to be. But
It's
can't
funny,
speak for
like
others. But
I mean,
anyway.
at a certain point, I'm gonna sound like I'm an atheist in this episode for some things I'm gonna say.
Okay, well, let's move on. So let's talk about Bill Belichick.
Okay,
So he is, for context, he is 74 years old, and his girlfriend is 24 years old. Is he not old enough to be her grandfather? At least her
twice
father,
over.
I guess.
No, not even like at 74. He is, even if he took 25 years off his age, he will still be old enough to be her father.
That's wild. So he did an interview with CBS News and, kind of just talking about, I guess, his new coaching position. And I guess they did a profile on him. And the topic got to his girlfriend and how they met and all these things. And she shut it down quick. Like she was like, nope, he's not answering that. He's not answering that. Like every question they try to ask about the relationship, she shut it down. Or any question that they try to ask him that she felt uncomfortable with, she shut it down. And people are like, what's going on? Is she like his PR person? Is she like, what's going on here? And then it came out that, even with his new coaching job, that he now wants all of his staff and everyone who sends him any emails to CC his girlfriend on all the emails that has to do with like football related stuff. And I'm like,
Right.
what is happening? Like, is he okay? Should someone like check on him? I'm just really confused. And I guess they met on a flight, like on a plane on a flight to Miami or something like that. And they've been together since 2021, I believe. What is the appeal with, first of all, what is a 24-year-old girl doing with or woman, I should say, doing with a 74-year-old man? And what is a 74-year-old man doing with a 24-year-old woman? I don't understand the like appeal of it. Like they have nothing in common except his money, I guess.
I don't know. Like maybe, some of these men, especially at 74, you ain't got a lot of time left.
No, like you have more years behind you than you do in front of you at this point.
So it's like a part of me, I kind of understand him. It's like, I ain't got much time left. Do I want to sit here, being miserable, or can I be happy? Can I find my youth again? Can I find my best years again? So part of me
you got to
can't
do it
blame
with
him.
a 24-year-old? You can't
Why
go
not?
30s?
That would be much different. These maybe, but if we're gonna be honest, that wouldn't really make a difference. If you found somebody in their 40s, it'll be more acceptable, but it will still be the same thing. It just seems to me like he's trying to recapture his youth.
His youngest child is 13 years older than his girlfriend.
Yeah, that has
Put that into perspective.
That has to be very weird and strange. Was he known for something like this before? Because that would explain it.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not in the football world, so I don't know too much about it. But obviously, there's been things with him in the past. But I don't think I've heard anything like this. Like this is very bizarre. That's what I'm like. Is he like okay? Like should somebody be checking on him? Like where's his family in all this? That's what I want to know. Like why is his family letting? Well, I'm not say letting this happen, but shouldn't somebody be like, let's go check on grandpa? Like, let's go check on dad and make sure that this is like okay and she's not taking advantage of it, because it just looks weird.
Listen, if she finds her way into the will, then I'll start asking questions. That'll be my red flag. Until then, I'm gonna be like, that's a grown man making grown man decisions. But if she finesses her way into that will, then I'm gonna say he's probably being manipulated.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna know until there is time and need for him to have a will or present the will or whatever. But yeah, I just don't know what the fascination is. I don't understand. Like, you're a man. What,
I
like,
mean,
when you're in your 70s, are you gonna be chasing 20-year-olds?
I would hope not. I would hope I would still have a wife around, kids. I would hope I'm not chasing something like that. But I've never been 74. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that feels like. Mm, you know, like I said, I think like a part of it is that he's trying to regain his youth. Did he have any recent health scares that kind of, when you get that health scare or something happened to you, suddenly it's like, you know what, you throw caution to the wind and start checking off your bucket list. Like, let me do some of these things before I go.
So this is like I don't even want to say midlife crisis because he passed his midlife, right?
Way past.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I mean, I guess we've always like seen it, like a trend, of older men dating way young girls, but this is what like a 45-year age gap.
I mean, it's just right.
Yeah, 40.
That's 50.
Is that 50?
Yeah, 20 and 74. That's 50.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
God damn. That's a gap.
Yeah.
That's a gap.
Now I'm gonna have to have a talk with these public schools because you should not be getting that kind of math wrong.
Look,
that's the biggest issue right now between me and you.
math is not my forte. Okay, I claim it. And I'm not good at math. Okay, that I do not claim to be an expert in math. So that's my defense. But yeah, I don't even like. What else can we say about this? It's just wrong and very inappropriate, and we know she's only with him for his money and status and power and whatever else that she can get out of it. I'm thinking about something, but I don't want to say it.
I'm sure we're all thinking it, and maybe you shouldn't say it, but you should.
No, I'm not gonna say it. I think we all know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, what is it like? What is it like?
Okay, because I don't know if I should say this either. Okay, I've dabbled in dating older men, but like way older. Like, anyway, I'm not going to try to put all my business out there. But
what's the oldest?
Okay, the oldest I was 27 and he was 50. So I have a little bit of experience with that, and it didn't work out so well. So I'm always like curious about like the dynamic, especially if it's such an age gap of like, how does that work? Or does it even work? But I'm sure there are like pills and things out there that help with situations like that. So, hey, to each his own.
I'm assuming if he even cares.
That is true too.
Right?
He might not care.
Because sometimes I look at these situations, I'm like, both parties have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's not long term for him, if it's just fun, I don't see the point of taking pills.
Mm-hmm.
If for her it's just, sugar daddy kind of thing, does she even care?
Okay.
Right?
So a lot of this stuff might not even necessarily be physical. It could just be for companionship, right?
And I'm going to assume that for her, she's not really looking for anything physical.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's not looking for that side of the relationship. She's not expecting it to be enjoyable. Like she's with the 74-year-old.
Right.
So she's probably like, yeah, let's just kind of get this over with, and take me to the store kind of thing. That's how I would imagine it. Like, but I've heard of that, mostly it's about companionship, but I find that hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that a man just kind of wants to
like
take
you
care.
said, you've never been 74, so you don't know, right?
But I will find it hard that he wants to take care of somebody for nothing, because if it's just about taking care of somebody, you got kids, you got family,
Mm-hmm.
you got people who take care of you and love you and can be around you, that kind of thing. So you don't need to like have a companion that's not doing anything else except, charging your credit card.
Right.
So, yeah, that's how I would assume that relationship goes. If it's something serious and meaningful, then that would surprise me very much. With that big of an age gap, it would very much surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, like, like the whole, at least we can kind of like, I don't want to compare it to like the whole Shannon Sharp situation, but we know his is clearly physical, right? Like
Right.
he's made it no qualms or anything about that. I want to pivot a little bit to that because I was not watching, but I saw a clip of that podcast Higher Learning with Rachel, what's her name? She was on The Bachelor, and the other guy from TMZ.
Did they get married?
No, they didn't get married. They have a podcast together.
But you said she's from
she was like the first Black bachelorette.
Oh yeah. Did she get a divorce from her husband?
Yeah, she got divorced.
Okay,
so they were talking about the whole Shannon Sharp thing, and she was like, I don't like when people make it like, the media is out, or the like, this is about taking down Black men, because you had mentioned that in our previous podcast about this being like a slew of Black men that are being taken down, and we should focus on the individual and not of like a collective of there's a vendetta or there's a movement taking down powerful Black men, when a lot of these things are based on their choices.
I agree. I think it comes down to choice. However, you can't help but notice when it does happen to Black men. You can't help but see a pattern, and it's not us pointing it out. Other people see it too. Do I think the rabbit hole is that deep? I don't know. But you would be blind not to notice, not to have some sense of it.
I agree. I think when it is a Black person involved in some kind of scandal, I think it is, especially a Black man, I think it is very much heightened in the news and in the media. But when other races counterparts do the same exact thing, it's sort of brushed under the rug. And I can give you 5 examples, right? Like Jonathan Majors, the whole thing with his assault was completely heightened. But then you have Dana White, and he slapped the crap out of his wife, and that kind of got swept under the rug, and nothing happened to him.
Right.
Then then the same thing happened with Jeremy Renner, where he somehow kind of domestic violence against his wife.
Right.
Because of no one talks about that, and now he's some kind of a hero because he did almost pass away.
Yeah.
He had an accident, but no one talks about his violent past.
Yeah.
And then we have like even comparing it to like Diddy, the whole Diddy situation. There's the former president, I think he was the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, where he had his whole like that got like one news cycle and it was over. And no one.
You're right. All of those things were like mentioned in passing almost. Yeah.
So it is hard to not see the double standard of, if it has something to do with some scandal involving a specific race, it's in the news more, versus if another race does it, it's on page 15 of the newspaper and no one talks about it again. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of like worth mentioning and wanted to hear your thoughts on it. But all right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Unless you have something else to add.
It's hard for me to like judge these situations as I get older. I'm like, these are 2 adults, and maybe there's a need that's being fulfilled for either one. It may not be physical, but it could be something else that's just needed at the time. I don't condone it, but I also understand that it's kind of none of my business. I'm like, as long as they're not hurting each other in any illegal sense, and if in every other way it's just a relationship, then it's none of my business. It's not something I would do, but it's none of my business.
Yeah, I agree. If it's 2 consenting adults and they like the agreement that they're in, who are we to judge?
Exactly.
So, all right, let's move on. So we're going to be moving on to Sinners, and I know you said you didn't like the movie. Watch out.
I didn't say that. Whoa.
We're going to drop the review, and you're going to hear exactly what he said, okay? Again, I want y'all to pump him on the comments.
I didn't like.
You said you did not like it. How dare you? Anyway.
I bet you're gonna say I don't like Michelle Obama too. I bet you're gonna say that.
Oh,
I bet you're gonna say I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. I bet you're gonna say a whole bunch of stuff that never came, that's never true.
I'm gonna send you a video of Michelle Obama this afternoon where she talks about. So she did this. She did a podcast with. Oh my God, what is his name?
Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, no, not Marlon Wayans. He's a UK podcaster. Oh, like everybody goes on his show.
UK.
I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, she was on his podcast and she was talking about her relationship to Barack, and she said that if Barack ever did anything to her, that she was gonna call him out and put him on blast if they ever like. And I wanted to send it to you. But then I thought, nope, this is just gonna add more fuel to the fire.
Yeah. No surprises, no lies told here. Like, does that surprise me? No.
And then they showed a clip of Barack in like 2008 where he said, "Oh, Michelle said that it's okay for her to call me out in public, but I can't call her out in public."
I bet.
I am not sending this to him.
I bet. And it's just one of those things. It's like, that's their relationship. If that's how they vibe, that ain't a problem for me.
Yeah.
However, I do expect more from, the former president and first lady. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I just thought that was like hilarious. Like, and I wanted to send it to you. Oh, it's called The Diary of a CEO. That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Of course. That's the name of her podcast or his podcast?
No, that's the name of the UK-based podcast that she was on, where she said that her podcast is called In My Opinion. I believe that's what it's called. Right. But she was on a Diary of a CEO podcast. I listened to it. It's actually pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, check it out. All right. Sinners. Huh?
No comment.
I know you're not going to listen, but I'm just saying.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Okay. So let's get back to Sinners. There's been a lot of talk on the internet about like the metaphor for it and what the deeper meaning of the movie. It's not just a vampire movie or a horror movie, that it symbolizes Black culture and things that Black people have gone through, and the vampire is supposed to be a metaphor for sort of like that, like Europeans coming in, taking Black culture, Black music, Black things, trying to turn it into their own, or having sort of the soul sucked out of it. Or in the other side of it is Black people having to sort of sell their soul in order to have long-lasting life or long-lasting fame or progress or whatever it might be. What do you think about this sort of deeper meanings and deeper metaphors into the movie? And do you think people are just reading way too much into it and it's just a straight vampire movie? Or do you think Ryan Coogler kind of, was throwing hints and throwing some little Easter eggs in there?
Wow. Where do I begin?
Oh boy.
So I don't think Ryan Coogler did anything no one else was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anything like groundbreaking or like it made me think something deeper. I think by the trailers, you already knew everything that was kind of going on. And the movie didn't explain anything from the trailers. Like, the trailers were great because it gave you a taste. It gave you an appetizer, a great appetizer. And when you go see the movie, you're thinking you're getting a meal. And it was still the same appetizer. I don't feel like there was anything that was explained because, again, from the trailer, you already know the era that is set in. You understand that there's vampires, and you pretty much know that the main vampire is going to be played by a white person, and it's going to be symbolic of the struggle and the racism that they had to face. That, to me, you didn't need to be a super intelligent person to figure that out. I just think that whenever it's Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, we think it's going to be something big. We put a lot of hype on it. And what we got was, it was just a solid movie, but it didn't make me think anything deep.
So do you think it's because it's Ryan Coogler that because of us holding him in such high regard, and all of his, his work have been brilliant, from Creed to Fruitvale Station to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, all of that. Do you think it's because of that we are sort of throwing deeper meaning into this?
I mean, like, I would say 100%.
Like, is it strictly because of that? Or do you think that if this was made by somebody else, would we be talking about it?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
If you take out Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan as characters, leave everybody else in, for example, it would have just been a regular vampire movie that ties it in with the racial segregation of the 1930s. That wouldn't be anything mind-bending for me. Like, for example, like a good movie that made me think and has a similar premise is a movie called They Clone Tyrone on Netflix. Have you seen that one? Well, I forgot the main character is John Boyega, Jamie Foxx, one other character. And the premise of the movie is that they're in like these hood Black neighborhoods, and pretty much they're cloning the worst elements of the Black community, the thugs, the pimps, the etc., the gangbangers. They clone them, put them back into the community to make things worse. And that is the premise of the movie. They clone Tyrone. Tyrone is this character. No, in fact, that's not even his name. One of the things they did is that John Boyega's character, he realizes he's just a clone, right? He thinks his whole life he's been raised by a single mother, and there's not even a mother in the home. There's just somebody yelling at him from the room. And so basically, like, all of his memories have been implanted in him. Like, he hasn't even like grown up as a kid. He's cloned as a fully grown man and given these fake memories. And he puts it all together that he's a clone. They find this underground laboratory where he sees all these different versions of himself, and they're putting something in the food, like all the chicken shacks, all these typical things you would find in a hood neighborhood. There's something in the food that makes, the community act a certain way. And they put two and two together that they're destroying us and that they've been experimenting on us. And this ties back to like the Tuskegee experiment and all these other stuff that happened to Black people along those lines. So that to me was like a good movie, but it didn't have like a Ryan Coogler to really like give it that notoriety or that attention. But that movie was good. And then when they discover what's going on, they bring it to the media exposes it, and at the end of the movie, you're in some other town in America. And then one character says, "Hey, Tyrone, they got you on TV." And then that's when you realize they're doing this all over America. And that's why the movie's called They Clone Tyrone. So John Boyega's character is like, I didn't even realize it, but his name is not even Tyrone. You find out in the end, yeah, they're hinting that this is something they've been doing for a long time to Black communities all over America. And that to me was deeper than Sinners.
Okay. I thought it was an enjoyable movie for me. So, and I appreciated the fact that it wasn't just another slave movie. Maybe that's what it is for me. Yes, the way everything worked out and all of that stuff was whatever. But in the beginning, at least for Act 1, you see that even in the midst of all of the Jim Crow laws and racist laws and all the things that were going on in the South, like the KKK showed up at some point in there and all that, you still saw Black people thriving, right? You saw these brothers trying to open up a club. You saw women in their community taking care of their children. You saw the church. You saw the community flourishing, and you saw people coming together. You saw friends coming together to be able to help these brothers open up their club. I think that's like, you sort of forget that, oh, this is like a horror movie. Like, you sort of forget because you're in the first act, you're sort of watching and you're like, oh, this is so refreshing because it's not just another struggle movie for me. So maybe that's why like I liked it so much, because I'm like, I'm not sitting here watching another struggle movie. I'm actually sitting here watching that, yes, even though life was hard back then, there were joys and there were periods and moments of joy for Black people, whether it was in their music, in their culture, in the way they take care of their community, whatever it might be. And that was showed and that was portrayed. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to see before it all goes to hell. So
yeah, I'll give them that. They kind of, showed like they had their own little corner of the world where, you could forget about what was going on.
right.
But that to me is why it's not this powerful thing to me, because you're not connecting it to the greater world or issues. Like I said in the movie, they clone Tyrone. That last scene connects it to other communities, and it lets you know this is a big overall problem that we're facing, and that makes you think deep that this is hitting all of us, and we didn't even know it. In the case of the Sinners movie, this felt more like an isolated incident. Like the vampires just happened to hear good music, and it was Michael B. Jordan and his friends that happens to be around. Because, for example, like they say what attracted the vampires was the boy's gift, but they're vampires. They would have been attracted to any group of people out in the woods because they were hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me wasn't anything special.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I will say this,
yeah.
Something that we said on our last episode was how what I appreciated was that they did not demonize African spiritual practices. They actually tried to put it in a positive light. They tried to show it as protective. And I see that an issue online is that people are upset about that hoodoo was positioned as something good. And you have people saying that it had anti-Christian propaganda. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I hadn't heard this one. Okay, so Christianity wasn't a thing in African culture back in the day. It was mostly, and this is how I'm by no means an expert, even though I'm Nigerian. I'm not an expert on this, but from what I've understood from from our culture and families and things that I've been passed down to me, from what I understand, and especially for I can only speak for my tribe, which is Yoruba tribe. They all believed in the orishas and the gods and sort of like the magic, hoodoo or voodoo, whatever you want to call it, stuff. And it wasn't a bad thing back then, right? Like it wasn't meant to be evil, at least from how I understood it. And this was just how our ancestors, this is what they believed in. This was what got them through hard times. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more of a historian than I am, but Christianity came from Europeans, did it not?
Well, I would say on that side of Africa, the Western side, we got introduced to it through European Christians. Christianity did exist in Ethiopia on the eastern side of Africa, and it was in Ethiopia before it was in Europe.
Okay. So speaking strictly for the west part of Africa, because that's where I'm from and that's what I know, Christianity wasn't prominent back in those days. And it wasn't until, the European settlers came and brought it there that people started converting to Christianity. And now, pretty much most of Africa is, especially in the West, are very religious and very Christian. Of course, you still have Muslims and other religions, but it is very much a Christian-based part of the world. But it didn't used to be like that. Over the years, you hear stories about how it's now being used for evil and it's a bad thing and is anti-Christian and all that. So, but it wasn't meant, it wasn't originally that. It was just a way for our ancestors to believe in something. That was what they believed in. That was their That was their way of surviving. That was their way of community. That was their way of that was their way of life. But it was never like an evil, bad thing. So that's those are just my thoughts on it. But of course, over the years, it's turned into this is evil and we shouldn't do this because of Christianity and all of that stuff. And as you know, as a Christian myself, I sort of struggle with it because we talked about this and maybe on our last episode. I don't believe in all that stuff, but I don't by any means knock people who do. If it's done, if it's not to like hurt other people. Like there's some people who still practice it. There are still many people who practice that kind of religion, and it's it's like another form of religion for them, and they're not using it to hurt people. But then you still have the other side, like all like just like being a Christian, right? You see so many people who twist the word, who twist the Bible, who twist Christianity for their own benefit. Like you see it all the time. So I believe there's not just one thing is good or evil. It's all about perspective and how you use it. Christianity is meant to be good, but you still have people people were prosecuted all in the name of God. I don't know what else to say. That's kind of how I feel about it. Is it's not good, it's not evil. It's all about whoever is wielding it.
Yeah.
That's all.
So I would say, like, for me, because of certain things Ryan Coogler has said and done, I'm not surprised about how he represented hoodoo and Christianity. He represented hoodoo as something more positive. And there's a line in the movie, I don't think I heard it, but at least two other people online, these big YouTubers, said Michael B. Jordan's character says something along the lines of, blues was never forced on us like that religion. Obviously referencing Christianity. And then what's important is that later on, when they get their juke joint together and they're playing blues, who's the only group trying to force their way in? So this is why, the way I looked at it, that little line, he's foreshadowing the vampires coming, and those vampires represent Christianity trying to force their way in. And that evangelicals, they just kept focusing on the hoodoo aspects or what they were doing with the music and stuff like this, but completely overlooking the vampires trying to force their way in, right? Like, you're noticing, the drinking, the music, the other, fornication that's happening inside the juke joint, but ignoring the vampires that want to come in and murder everyone.
Right.
And
again, perspective.
So I'll find it strange that you could see this great evil in hoodoo. And mind you, the woman that practices hoodoo, she was invited. No one had to force her in, and she uses her knowledge to protect people. The vampires, who kept pretending to be a friend, they kept saying, yo, we just want to vibe with you guys, but deep down you're murderous.
Right.
And I felt like that was one of the deeper messages that, historically with Christianity, they're coming off like, hey, we just want to share our religion with you. We want to show you the truth. We want to give you this hope. And then you end up enslaving and colonizing. So I appreciated that scene because it kind of spoke a little bit of truth that evangelicals don't want to see. And it's not a question of whether I agree with hoodoo or Christianity, but I could see the historical reference to it. That this is what happened historically.
That is what happened.
Right. Because any religion, right? Christianity or otherwise, if you come knocking on my door wanting to force your way into my home, well, it only makes sense I'm going to use my religion to defend myself against you because you're forcing your way in. So how can my religion be bad? It's only bad because I'm using it to defend myself against you. Right. And this is where the African spiritualities like voodoo and hoodoo became evil, because they were used to defend our ancestors from these invading Christians. But they've distorted history to make us think that we're the bad guys. Malcolm X says something similar, where you would see these images or stories about Black people being lynched, and you would see these Black people being hung by a group of racists, and they would talk like the Black individual would be wrong to defend himself while somebody's trying to take his life. Like, again, that had to do that was about perspective. So I just would want people to really think about that, you know, I don't think he's writing the scenes to be anti-Christian, but he is pointing out a history of violence by people using the Bible. And that's just true. You had this one rapper, his name is Lecrae. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's like a Christian rapper.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just making similar comments, you know, like the movie Sinners is anti-Christian, is promoting, you know, using evil to fight evil. And again, I'm like thinking, like, are you really understanding what's going on and putting yourself in the shoes of our ancestors when, you know, Christians would impose their authority or rule over our ancestors? There was a law in 1705 Virginia where basically if a black slave got into an altercation with a white Christian, the black slave was inherently guilty and could be killed for it. Like, that's where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an injustice that has to be addressed, but it's not always addressed. So again, I just kind of appreciated the film for simply just not demonizing anything that came out of Africa. Like this narrative that before Europeans came with Christianity, Africans were throwing demonic spells at each other.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
It wasn't like that.
That's all we were doing before you got there, trying to take care of our families. You know,
it was all about community. Something. I mean, they had like the higher priests and the sort of like the main staple of the community who you would go to, you know, if your children was sick or whatever it might be, for guidance, right? Yeah. And it was just a way to commune with the ancestors. But you know, at the same time, when, you know, Christianity moved in, a lot of the wars that we went through history, if you look back at it, they were all based on religion. And it's like, is that what Christianity has been used for so much great evil? And it's like, that's not what this religion is supposed to be about. Yeah. And you're the main ones that point fingers at other religions. Like, what? And then, like,
I find that hilarious
for me, right? It really is the hypocrisy for me. And I'm not talking bad about Christians. Again, I'm a Christian, but I'm just saying, like, because you are a Christian does not mean you have to demonize other religions that don't think like you. Everyone is just looking for something to believe in. That's it. Everyone is looking for comfort. Everyone is looking for something to believe in, and you persecuting them for what they believe, as long as they're not hurting anybody, like, why the fuck do you care?
Wow.
I'm sorry. Like, it pisses me off. I'm sorry. Like, why do you care? Like, even Jesus was like, look, love everybody. Okay. That was literally his whole thing, was love everybody. Jesus did not prosecute anybody. Jesus did not look down on anybody. Okay. Jesus was friends with murderers and prostitutes. Hell, he was saving people even on the cross. There were 2 murderers that was next to him on the cross. And the one to his right was like, I believe you're the savior. And Jesus was like, I will see you in heaven. Right. Even like, what are we talking about here? Yeah, yeah.
And you know what's one of the funny things is that we're supposed to call out our own religion, especially if we look at the biblical principles. We have to call out one of our brothers and sisters in Christ before we call out anybody in the world, because the world doesn't know better.
Right.
But we do. And a perfect example of that is when King David stole a man's wife, got her pregnant, then had the man killed to cover up his infidelity. And then it took Nathan the prophet to come out and expose that, to expose David's crime. And then David has to repent. So again, it's like we are duty bound to be like, listen, before you start talking about what these non-believers are doing, what are you doing?
Hold yourself accountable.
You know, you hold yourself accountable first. So like, yeah, like I'm glad that film sparked that conversation about, you know, demonizing these other religions just because. And the thing is, if the movie had it in reverse, you would have no problem. You know, right. You'd have no problem if they used Christianity to protect themselves and hoodoo was the bad guy. You would look at that as, oh, that's true. That's how it happens. But because it's in the reverse, you're upset. And as you mentioned earlier, if it was a slave movie or a struggle movie for Black people where we were getting kicked in the face by our oppressor, our children sold by the Christians and whatever the case may be, but we held on to our faith, you'd have no problem with that. Right? You'd have no problem as long as we held on to our faith regardless of the oppression. But let somebody practicing hoodoo or voodoo decide to protect us from a Christian oppressor, you're now upset. Well, what are they supposed to do? If for hundreds of years you use your religion to harm me, why would I think your religion is good? That makes no sense. You know, that's like you invite me to the best restaurant in the world. This restaurant says it's the truest restaurant of all time. I go inside and the bathroom's dirty. The staff is rude, but you're telling me not to judge you according to those standards. Why would I not judge you by that? You want me to just judge you by your menu or how good the food is? No, I got to judge you by the overall experience. And if I find that the spoons and the plates are dirty, nothing's washed, I'm not coming back here. And you can't judge the other religions until you fix yours.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about perspective. So, all right, let's move on to our last topic. So there's this video going around of this Karen. Her name's not Karen. I don't know what her name is. We'll call her Karen. It's going around of her basically throwing the N-word at a 5-year-old child. Because this is a 5-year-old child with autism. Because she supposedly thought that the child went into her purse. And took something?
Yeah, because like the way it seems to be construed is that she had brought her child to the park and in her bag were toys. This other kid saw some of the toys and was going to take them or play with them or something.
And instead of her to talk to the child's mother, or which is the appropriate thing to do, or dad, whoever was there with the child, she decided to start throwing N-words around at the child. And this was all caught on video. And the person who was taking the video sort of went to her and was like, hey, why are you throwing racial slurs at this child? And she just kept throwing it around, didn't care. So look, my thing is, we really need to, it's okay. So it's two parts for me here, right? It's one, this is an adult talking to a child this way. And two, the way we treat people with disability in this country is quite awful. So let's take it two parts at a time. The first one is what are your thoughts on this whole thing? And I guess I sort of know the answer to my own question here, but I'll ask it anyway. Is the climate that we're in just still constantly giving people the license to act this way?
Yeah, if you mean like the political climate, who's in leadership, yeah, people are feeling real bold and they're, people who are not victims are calling themselves victims. And in the case of this woman, which again, we need more details first. But from what I've gathered, because I don't even know her name, but from what I've seen, because I don't even want to give her that label just yet until I know more details. Because I'm
throwing N-words at a child, you're a Karen. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. There's no reason for you to be throwing N-words at a 5-year-old.
Right. But I'm still always the type to be like, let me find out more before I assess, before I come to a final conclusion. And as of now, from what I've seen, yeah, she's a Karen. She shouldn't be throwing that word around. And the thing is, to me, what if there was another scenario where you had a man bringing his child to the park, he puts his bag down, and a little girl goes rummaging, going through it, right? Rummaging through it. He sees a little girl going through his bag and he calls her the B word. If you're listening and you could see this as grossly offensive, then that means you have a heart. You could see that this man is the villain, even if that little girl even meant to steal something. He clearly has gone too far. And to call a little girl that word, there's a hatred inside of you, not the little girl, because the little girl could be corrected. Now, yeah.
Go ahead. I'll let you.
I was going to say, going back to the original scenario, this woman, she sees a child go through her bag. There's 1,000 ways you could have handled that, like you could have let the child play with the toy. It's not like the 5-year-old wasn't going to overpower you or run faster than you if they were trying to take it. You could have just been like, oh, they just want to play with that toy. I'll let them play with it for a little bit. That's about it. Or you could have taken your bag, taken your stuff because it's still a child. That's how you could have handled it as an adult. But using that word meant that there was a deeper hatred there. Like you wanted to take your anger out on that child. That hatred existed in you before you met that child, and you found the perfect excuse and moment to unleash on a child and justify it. And that's what I see. I also get the feeling, and this is just me assuming, this is me making a guess. Why was your bag left unattended except to maybe trap the child? You left it there deliberately. You left some of the toys hanging out and knew that at some point that child will venture and see it, just so you could have an excuse to unleash your hatred. And a part of me just wonders if that was the case, because if you're at a park, why did you leave your bag unattended? And how long did you leave it unattended for? Because most people don't do that. They keep their bag with them.
Yeah. I don't want to speculate on if she left it open on purpose or not. We don't know. I don't know if that was, so we're not going to speak on that because we don't know. But what I am going to say is people don't give our kids the same grace as they do other races. If this was another child of another race, and again, I'm the last person to throw race into things. I don't like doing it quite often because I like to see things as like, okay, maybe this is just whatever. Like this is just the way things are, and it has nothing to do with race. So I'm like the last person to sort of put race into things. But let's call a spade a spade. If it was another child of another race that had done the exact same thing that this Black child did, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I just think that we've had these conversations and we'll continue to have these conversations. The world does not give our kids the same amount of grace that they do other kids of other races. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, where was that kid's parents? Because I didn't see them in the video, unless I missed it.
That's what I'm still waiting on.
Parents.
I'm still waiting on that before we come to any sort of conclusion. I'm sure there's going to be an investigation. I do think that the current racial climate has gone beyond even the incidents that are happening. I mean, like this right here, this incident didn't involve so much people. It really should be this woman apologize. She did not need to say that to a child. It shocks me the amount of people that are just saying, well, she was just using her free speech like against a 5-year-old. Like that's just
a 5-year-old. Again, this child was
5. And if autistic, because that's what we're hearing now, how do you feel about yourself, right? Attacking a 5-year-old autistic child. Do you still feel like you're the good guy? Do you still feel like you're the one being victimized? But again, all we can do right now is speculate a little bit, guess a little bit. But from what we've seen, what we're putting together, like, you're not a nice person to begin with. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. So that would be my first thought. And then my second thought goes to children with autism have different ways of thinking, different ways of learning, different ways of acting, different ways that their brain works. Let's just say the bag was open and he saw the toys and he went and took it. Remove the autistic part. Like when my kid was 5, do you know what he was going over there touching?
Yeah.
Like every time we would go out to the store in public, he would just be grabbing things. That's what kids do. If they see a shiny thing, especially a shiny toy that they want,
yeah,
I don't care whose property it is, they will go and grab it. And it's up to you as the adult to say, no, that this isn't for you, or where's your mommy, or what, like put some human decency on.
And when these kids grab that toy, you can't just take it from them. They're gonna make a scene.
Yes. Like you can't just grab a toy from a 5-year-old and think that that's gonna work out well for you. It's just not. And then you throw the autism on top of it, and you like they're not going to give it up. They're just not going to give it up. So I just wish that adults can act like adults, and I just wish that people like this use their common sense. Like, what exactly was like, were you in any sort of danger? Like, was this child threatening to you in any way? Is that why you felt the need to throw a racial slur at them?
And continue doing it on video.
And continue to do it. At what point were you in such a danger or such in distress?
Yeah.
That you thought this was warranted.
Yeah. Like it's like you were saying, like our children cannot be treated as children. Like our 5-year-old can be treated like a 5-year-old.
No.
Level of innocence.
It's really disheartening. It really is disheartening that this is still happening, and this is still like we're still seeing things like this go viral on the internet. And look, I'm a mama bear through and through, right? Even at my son's big age, you say some shit to him and we fight. Let alone when he was 5, okay? We fighting. And you would not be throwing slurs at my child, okay?
Right.
So yeah, it really is hard. And going back to the whole disability part of it, we need to give people with disability more grace as well in this country, especially children. Like, we need to stop demonizing it and treating it like it's an icky thing or it's a bad thing. Like, where people are born, people are born differently. People are born with all kinds of disabilities and struggles. And speaking from one person with a disability, like, I know what I've gone through, where people are like, they look at you and they judge you, and without even knowing your story or what you've been through or whatever it is, and they just automatically assume things about you. And it is hard. Like, it's hard as an adult. It's even harder when I was a kid. And I know people that have disabilities in my life, and I know like how hard it is for them as well. And I just really wish that people would like understand that just because you have a disability does not mean you're dumb or you're stupid or you're this or you're like, I hate the whole stereotype that it puts on people. And I really wish that people would treat the community better.
Yeah.
That's all. I really wish that people would treat the community, that disability community better, because it's hurtful. It's gross. It's demeaning. And yeah, I'll leave it like that.
I can't imagine what it's like to be, you try your hardest to like say, keep up with other people, try to do the things they do, and to finally admit that you can't do it is something. And then to try to get help, and people don't understand why you need the help. They're like, oh, you're fine. And they don't understand how hard you work to appear fine. Like, you're working 3 times harder just to look like you're doing it like at everybody else's pace.
But it's not even that. Yeah. It's not even just that, right? I don't need people putting limitations on me. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. And I feel like people with disability get limitations put on them all the time. Just because my body doesn't work the way yours does, or just because my brain doesn't work the way yours does, or just because I don't act the way you think I'm supposed to act, or whatever it might be that I'm struggling with, right? Does not mean you're better than me, or does not mean that I'm incapable. And I don't need you to treat me like I'm incapable.
Well, what I mean to say is, like, so I've had family with, their own struggles in that same department. It's like everybody knows what you're going through, or they know your condition, but you've never said it yourself out loud. I would understand why some people, they think they
not everybody does.
Right.
I get it. Especially if it's like mental illness or something like that.
Yeah, they think they can like pray their illness away, or they can outrun their condition somehow.
I get what you're saying.
And maybe if they do X, Y, Z,
it'll go away.
It'll go away, and it won't. So I've seen that happen, and then you think this person is handling it when really they're just not saying anything. Mm-hmm. They're not telling you how painful it is. Like, Some of the people I lost wrote journals, and I didn't realize how serious this was for them. And they kept it to themselves. And then I'm kind of now wondering, like, did they pass away early because of that stress? Because they kept trying to keep up with everyone else, not say anything, do things on their own, not ask for help. And when they finally admitted it, you realize the burden that they let go. Like, they finally admitted that I'm struggling with this, and I kept that from you. And so my heart goes out to anybody who's like that. You know, they feel like they got to do it on their own. And it's on us to understand that when they need the help, we got to give it to them. When they need the time, we got to give it to them. Like, maybe we could solve this problem in 30 minutes, but they need 60. They need that room.
And not all disabilities are physical, right? Like you can't tell by looking at, yes, some people you can look at them and tell, okay, there's, they have a disability, something's up, but there are millions of people out there with disabilities that you have no clue if they don't tell you, right? Like, because you just won't, it's not something you'd be like, oh yeah, this person has blah, 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 blah. It doesn't work that way. So we definitely, and I totally get what you're saying because it is hard to admit.
Yeah.
It's very hard to admit. So I just really wish people would let's just give each other more grace.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we lack empathy in this country. I don't know where that went. I don't know what happened, but it just seemed like empathy just got sucked out of this whole thing. And it's like, we really need to be more compassionate and be empathetic to how other people are feeling, because we don't have that anymore. And it's really sad that I can't be sympathetic to what you're going through. I'm pointing fingers and like, well, it's not me, it's them, because it's like, oh, it's them. When does them now become you? And then now when it's your turn, now you want other people to help you. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, if I can't just look at somebody and be like, well, I'm not going through it, so I don't know. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
So if you don't hear if you don't get anything out of this episode, at least get that of, let's try to be more empathetic towards other people. Let's try to understand other people's struggle. Let's try to understand that we're all just trying to live life to the best of our ability and to the best of our capabilities. And it's already hard enough as it is out here in these streets. We don't need to be making it more hard.
Yeah. I would say one thing, like there's more we have to learn from that situation. And I think it's important because it did happen to a child. And I hope the woman, the Karen, I don't even like using that word, but I don't know her name.
That's what she could do. Okay. You don't speak to children like that.
Well, the thing is, in this particular case, I would want her to look at the situation and wonder, could she have handled that better? Because if she comes to find out that the child did have a disability or whatever the case may be.
Let's remove the disability piece of, because people are focusing on the autism part. Remove the autism part. Let's just say this is just a normal 5-year-old boy and grabs it.
I was gonna say, like, what would you have want somebody to do if it was your child? Which is really what I was gonna say. If that was your child, would you want that person to handle it with grace and remember that it's just a child? There's other ways you could have handled that. And then when you do add in the autism, I will hope that really goes out to you, like, that you are apologetic, that you are just like, that was really my bad, because it's going deeper in ways that it shouldn't. Like, people are obviously they're introducing the race factor, the disability factor. People are choosing sides, and this to me has gotten bigger than it should, because they're connecting it to other situations that happen that's race related. And I'm like, man, this is getting out of hand. Now it's like the smallest altercation becomes everyone's problem,
right?
When it could have just been handled then and there, just right there. If somebody just had their head on right, they could have just been like, you know what, here's how I want to handle this, and that's what
she had her own child in her hand. That was the crazy part.
Yeah.
She was her own child, and it's like you said, do you want somebody talking to your child like that?
Exactly.
People are That's why I don't like people. That's why I say to myself, okay, I do not have time for BS, okay? Anyway, well, thank you all for joining us this week. It's been I know it was a heavy day today, but I'm glad we got through it. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you check us out on our YouTube channel at The Foreign Lady Pod. We're really trying to grow the channel, so please go and support us there. Yes. And on our social media at The Foreign Lady Pod on Instagram and Facebook. Do people even use Facebook anymore? I don't know.
Old people. People, yeah. That's what the young people be telling me. They were like, Facebook's for old people.
I don't use Facebook anymore. So
yeah. Stop lying. Stop lying. Why you say that? You brought it up.
That's what I said. I said we have it for our podcast, but I don't personally
use it. You on there. You just posted a picture last night.
No, I did not. Get out of here. Well, clearly you have one.
It was the funniest thing about my coworker whenever we mentioned Facebook. He's like, Facebook's for old people. And I was like, damn, it's like the MySpace. Facebook,
yes. No, I feel like the MySpace. Isn't that weird? Like Facebook was supposedly like for college. Like that was what we used in college, remember?
Yeah.
And now it's like 40 and up or 45 and up.
Exactly.
Or now Facebook.
Even like things like Instagram are eventually going to be that old people thing because
now there's TikTok. Isn't it TikTok?
Yeah.
Yeah, TikTok is the new thing now. People aren't using them that much now. It's TikTok, and I'm sure there'll be something else soon. So
you got to start catching up.
I know. I refuse to get a TikTok. Like I am refusing. I might get one for the channel and for our podcast just to keep up with the children.
Your son is not going to want you on his feed. Your son is not going to want you on his feed. Like you part of the Facebook club. You part of that generation to him.
Even on Instagram, he's like, "Mom, don't post me anymore. Don't tag me."
Exactly. You part of the Facebook group. You part of that.
It's like, don't tag me. Don't do nothing. Don't even pretend I don't exist on social media. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I'll do that. Oh man. Well, thanks so much again for joining us, you guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure you check out our old episodes. If you haven't seen the one from last week, it's up now. Make sure you go check it out. And we'll see you all next week. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Foreign Lady.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast.
Follow us on social media at The Foreign Lady Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Email us at theforeignladypodcast@gmail.com. See you next time.